Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do have this little like respond in the chat before we get started. Feel free to do that. It's just, share a time that a book club memory sparked an unexpected conversation. So we're gonna get started, but go ahead and respond in the chat if you would like. All right, so I'm Laura. I go by Poppy though, and I'm a learning designer from Innovative Education Digital Learning at the University of South Florida, Sarasota campus. That's a mouthful. And I'm here presenting with my team member, Bailey Cleveland, who is also a learning designer at the Sarasota campus. And in our role as learning designers, we partner with faculty to design and develop high quality online learning experiences. So in today's workshop, we have three outcomes that we would like you to leave with. At the end of this workshop, you should be able to define social annotation and explain its role in promoting student engagement and collaborative reading. Next is to compare different tools and strategies for implementing social annotations so that you can guide instructors toward the right fit for their course. And number three is to explain effective facilitation techniques, for example, prompts and hashtags to support meaningful interaction. So this session really focuses on the why behind social annotation and some different tools and examples out there, but we're not going to be focusing on the actual setup of these tools. There will be resources included at the end of the PowerPoint with directions for how to set up social annotations in your course developments. This session will have a couple of stopping points for discussions so that we can share thoughts and ideas with each other, but feel free to share in the chat at any point so that we can learn from each other. It's always interesting hearing what others are doing and taking away some new ideas and strategies as well. And just so you know, we will be uploading a PDF version of this session so that you can go back and reference it as needed. And you can find that if you select our session in TOPkit. I'll make sure to upload it after this. So we're going to take a moment here before we really get into things and just kind of pause. And I'm sure we have some instructional designers and maybe instructors in here. So for my instructional designers, what challenges do instructors most often bring to you about assigned readings? Go ahead and share in the chat. And then any instructors, what's the biggest challenge that you face with assigned readings in your course?
There's one answer that's always going to pop up, and I'm waiting for it.
Yep,
They
it's
don't
there.
read them. It's there.
It is there. That's why we're
That
here
is,
today.
yeah. It's like that is the answer.
hmm Everyone's probably
Um,
just like, yep, yep.
yep,
What
that
Lisa said.
challenge. Yep, yeah.
Yeah, students don't read. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they got a lot going on. There's a lot going on right now.
How to get them to
To
read.
read,
Yeah.
yes. Um,
Motivating them.
mm,
Yeah.
keep like that's why we're here. Like, make it social, make it fun.
hmm Making it interesting and relevant. Yeah,
hmm
exactly. How does it apply to the real world, what they're going to be doing outside
hmm
of college?
There's
Yeah,
always that
well,
student's like, when will we use this in the real world?
oh,
Like,
yeah,
why
always
don't
that
you
one.
like ask your fellow students? Like, let's all talk about it together.
Yeah. Well, hopefully after this presentation, you will have a solution to that problem. So let me go
Awesome.
ahead and go to the next slide, but feel free to continue and share in the chat as well. So let's start with the problem here. Passive reading. This is an instructional challenge that gets brought up constantly when partnering with instructors. Readings are assigned, but student interaction with the text is skimmed, skipped, or treated as just a checkbox. And then we might try to fix it with a discussion board or a quiz. But that conversation usually happens after the reading and it can become summary based rather than sense making. Meanwhile, instructors want more engagement, but they don't want that heavier grading load. So we're asked, is there a tool for this? Our framing today is that social annotation is a way to promote engaging, collaborative, and active reading.
So the question is, what is social annotation and when is it a good fit for a course? Well, at its core, social annotation is the practice of I cannot say that, collaboratively commenting, say that 5 times fast, on, on digital text in real time. Instead of reading alone, students can ask questions, share insights, and respond to each other directly in the margins of the reading. Like you find some books and you're always like writing in the margins, but like we're going to do this, it's digital, so everybody can learn. Because this interaction happens during the reading, students engage with ideas while they're still fresh, rather than trying to recall them later, discussion board at Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Uh, this leads to more active reading, a stronger comprehension, and higher engagement. Social annotation, it works particularly well when reading is central to the learning outcomes, i.e., a literature course.
Mhm.
Um, this is especially true when courses where students are expected to interpret ideas, analyze arguments, compare perspectives, or work through dense or complex texts. Instead of reading in isolation and trying to remember it later, as we said, annotation really lets them slow down and think through the material as they're reading. It's a great fit for online and hybrid courses where they're not seeing their fellow students. There's no way to talk in person. Um, Social annotation, it gives students a way to engage with each other in real time. So it starts to feel more like a discussion. Yeah, you might hear in a face-to-face class. And finally, it really works when it's low stakes. That way students feel that pressure to be perfect. They're more willing to ask questions, share ideas, and respond to each other authentically. So the common question and concern we're always hear, what about AI? Always. It's going through our heads. Well, social annotation doesn't really eliminate AI use. That's hard. But it might make shortcuts less tempting. Students are responding in the moment directly in the text with brief, low stakes contributions. By keeping that annotation low stakes, it really helps. And it's important to be explicit about expectations, why this activity is designed the way it is, and why you really shouldn't be using AI. It's just easier to use your brain at that point.
All right. So one of the really exciting things about social annotation is just how versatile they are. So you can annotate traditional texts like articles, PDFs, and essays. Students can also interact with exemplars, lecture notes, or slides. Some social annotation tools even allow for podcasts, videos, images, and even a syllabus can become a space for social annotation, which can be a really helpful way to start the course, seeing what questions students have, and also allowing them to practice using the social annotation tool before getting into the readings. Essentially, any resource where students can engage with ideas and respond to each other can be annotated. So when we work with instructors on designing annotation assignments, we encourage them to give students simple, purposeful prompts that guide their reading. As students read, instructors can prompt them to consider questions like, what do they agree or disagree with and why? Are there parts of the text that raise questions for them? Any confusion? Encouraging students to make connections to their own life experiences, to another text, or even to something discussed in class can make that reading a lot more meaningful as they work through it. They can also enrich their annotations by including links, images, or videos that relate to the reading or their thoughts. Another helpful approach is to have students paraphrase a section of the text, and this allows instructors to see how they're interpreting it and helps them process the ideas in their own words. And finally, asking students to reflect on how a passage broadened or challenged their thinking encourages deeper engagement and self-reflection as well. Another important tip for guiding instructors is to explain why social annotations matter to their students. So in this example here, an explanation is included in the first module of the course, so the students know right away the purpose of socially annotating the reading throughout the course. The annotation assignments in this course are framed around two purposes. The first one is it encourages active reading, Instead of passively skimming, students are invited to mark up the text, ask questions, and respond to each other using a tool called Perusal, which we're going to get into pretty soon. And then second, annotations enrich the reading experience itself. In this case, the goal is to help students read the book Frankenstein more deeply, which not only makes the reading more meaningful, but also prepares them for a major research paper that they'll complete throughout the course. By linking the activity directly to this larger assignment, the instructor shows students that these small, low stakes annotations serve a bigger purpose in their learning journey. So now that students are making annotations and know the why behind it, how do we guide their responses to each other? The goal is to encourage meaningful engagement, not just replying for the sake of replying, like we sometimes see in the respond to two peers discussions. One way to do this is by offering sentence starters to help students frame their thoughts, and this can make their replies more thoughtful and specific. This is if the instructor chooses to provide prompts. They might want the conversation to be more organic, so it's really up to them. Prompts can just be there for students who might need them. Instructors also have flexibility in how they structure responses. They might want student interactions to focus on quality over quantity, so letting students respond just naturally and deeply, or they could provide a bit more structure, such as setting a word count or a minimum number of replies. They might even begin more structured and then loosen the reins as the course continues and students kind of get the hang of it and the expectations.
Alrighty, before we dive into some examples, I'm going to note that there are many social annotation tools out there, but today we're going to focus on three. We're going to talk about Perusal, which is designed for social annotation, and a couple of creative workarounds in Microsoft Word and LMS discussions. In our case, we use Canvas. The goal isn't to say one tool is the best, it's the perfect one, use that. But we're going to give you some concrete examples to recommend to you just based on the course goals. Again, you'll have access to these slides. There's a pros and cons chart for each tool that we'll get into later. All right, so let's go on to our first example. I know this looks like a lot, but this is the Perusal interface, and it's our first example, and we're licensed to use this here at USF. Perusal is a tool specifically for social annotation, and it integrates seamlessly with many LMSs, in our case, Canvas, which makes it relatively easy to set up and manage inside a course. It supports a range of content, not just PDFs, but also videos and podcasts. What you're seeing on side is, oops.
Sorry.
Yep.
I thought the pop-ups were I thought there were pop-ups, but there are not.
Yeah, there are pop-ups. I don't know where they are.
I know.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well,
Anyways.
that's fine. So what you're seeing on this slide is the Perusal annotation interface. Students highlight text to open a box. You can see the highlight on here. They can post a comment, which shows up on the right-hand side, and then classmates can reply underneath to build a threaded conversation that tied into that exact comment. So it becomes, social, just like a social media website. You're commenting and people are commenting back. We're not going to be demoing this live just for time's sake. Let's just take too long. But a few features are worth calling out. Perusal offers auto grading options and analytics, so instructors can really see that engagement data and get a sense of how students are interacting with material without any heavy manual tracking. Students can also use hashtags to keep conversations organized. We'll look more closely into that in the next slide. But finally, Perusal is designed with accessibility in mind. It has features like read aloud tools and keyboard navigation. So those hashtags, one powerful feature in the tools for like Perusal is the use of hashtags. You can use hashtags to group together similar themes in student annotations. not only helps organize peer dialogue, it makes it easier for students to follow conversations on the same topic, but it also gives instructors a clear view of emerging themes across the class. Like there's a lot of questions. Everybody used the question hashtag. You can filter out those in Perusal. Hashtags also encourage consistent organization of responses, which make both participation and grading more manageable. This is an example of an assignment we worked with Dr. Tim Turner, who teaches literature here at USF. As you can see in the LMS, he provided students with hashtags to use as they read through the text, in this case, Frankenstein, to help organize their thoughts, questions, and ideas. The image on the right is a screenshot of what hashtags look like in Perusal. Like if you're in Perusal, you can click on hashtag connection and it'll pop up with all those instances of that. Using hashtags can be a simple way to structure these discussions without taking away the organic book club style feel of that conversation.
All right, so another option for social annotation is a live Word document online. This is an example of how this could be set up in your LMS and including a link to the document and step-by-step instructions on how to create annotations are provided for students. We also include a guide for using track changes in Word, since that is how this is like a social annotation tool. It's not as robust as Perusal, but one of the benefits here is that it's a familiar interface for most students, and it allows for detailed comments using the track changes feature. It also supports real-time collaboration, so students can see each other's responses as they happen. That said, something to keep in mind is to make sure that the document includes actual text, not just an image of text, because students who use screen readers, they won't be able to access the text in the image, and other students won't be able to highlight or annotate it effectively, since you have to be able to actually select the text. This approach works best for small groups because with large groups, it can get a little clunky, but it is doable. Most students are also comfortable with Word. One more practical tip is you'll want to create a separate document for each group if you were to do it in groups so that they have their own space to annotate without interfering with others' group work as well. And you can then share the link to the document for each group. So I'll show you an example of what this looks like on the next slide. So as you can see, we have an example essay here that was created by AI for this session. On the right-hand side, you can see all of the comments. So if you hover over a comment, it will show you which highlighted section is being referenced in the essay, and vice versa. If you hover over a highlighted section, the comment on the right will light up that goes with it. And if anyone was viewing this document at the same time as me, I would be able to see their icon at the top and their comments would pop up on the right-hand side in real time. You're also able to like comments and respond to others as well. If you @mention them, they will be notified. Something to note is once you get several comments, it gets a little hard to manage since you do have to scroll to see them, but this is still a great way to have students collaborate on annotating a document, especially if you don't have access to a tool like Perusal. Another way to do social annotation is by getting creative with LMS discussions. So USF, we use Canvas. In this example, students are annotating a poem by replying directly with the lines they're commenting on. It's important here to number each line so that students can include the line numbers in their comment. It's a bit different from a traditional social annotation tool, but it's still the same idea. Students are interacting with the text and each other as they read. The benefits here are that you don't need any extra tools. It's easy to grade using SpeedGrader and Canvas, and it integrates directly into your course modules. LMS discussions work well for shorter texts since the structure is simple and students can respond quickly. Just make sure that, again, you are using text and not an image of text for accessibility. And here we have what a response could look like. So you can see how the lines and hashtags are called out in my response here. Canvas includes annotation-like tools such as liking and at mentioning as well. So it's a flexible, low barrier option that still supports collaborative reading. It really is just a basic Canvas discussion. It's not the same as Perusal or a live Word document, since there is no highlighting feature and students can't see who is on in the moment and commenting, but it is a creative workaround if the instructor wants to keep it simple and in the LMS. Here we have kind of a high level look at the pros and cons of the three approaches that we've covered. I'm not going to read it word for word on here, but the main takeaway is that each tool has its strengths and limitations. Perusal, for example, it's built for social annotations, so it's feature rich, it supports multiple media types and analytics as well. The trade-off is that it requires setup and it can have a bit of a learning curve for students. Live Word documents are familiar and flexible, especially for small groups, but it can get messy with larger groups, and tracking individual contributions can be a little tricky, especially if it's for a grade. And last, LMS discussions are easy to implement, no extra tools needed. It's simple to grade and integrate into modules, but they are less dynamic. Students have to manually reference the lines instead of annotating directly in the text. So the good news is that you'll have access to these slides after the workshop so that you can revisit the chart and these details when you're working on your course developments. And the important thing is to choose the approach that fits the instructor's course goals, the class size, and the content, the type of content that they're using too. All right, so let's talk about some challenges and pitfalls when it comes to including social annotations in a course. The most common pitfall is over requirements. Too many comments, too many rules, which pushes students to post for compliance rather than learning, and that's what we're trying to get away from. Along those same lines, we also recommend being thoughtful about how often social annotation shows up in a course. When students are constantly annotating text, burnout can set in, and comments then start to feel more robotic. So, social annotations do not need to be for every single reading in a course. Another frequent issue is overgrading, which raises anxiety and kind of flattens that authentic discussion. Usually, we recommend keeping it low stakes. And two other big ones are lack of modeling and unclear purpose. If students don't see an example of what a meaningful annotation looks like, or they don't understand the why behind why they're doing it, engagement can drop quickly. All right, so I've
All
been
righty.
talking for quite a
I
while,
know.
so
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna go
give
pause
Poppy
here.
a moment to take some water, catch your breath.
Yeah,
So we're gonna
same.
pause here and we're gonna think about your own courses or your own course design. Oh, which of the tools or examples we've looked at sparked an idea for something you might want to try with your students or in your next course design? Just take a moment to reflect, and if you feel comfortable and share an idea with the group. It could be a particular cool tool, a creative approach like using LMS discussions, or even a way you might adapt in an existing assignment. If it helps, think back to the texts you assign or the learning goals for your course. How might one of these approaches support that goal? And I know in the comments we had said for harmonized users, that's also a social annotation. Yes,
We
we
love
have used,
Harmonize.
we love Harmonize. We have used Harmonize before, but I
I
can't
haven't used the
remember.
social annotation in there, so we'll
Haven't
have
used
to
it.
mess around with that.
Oh,
Lisa,
he's
that's
all these
awesome
ideas. Oh, no,
for
that's
course
wonderful.
designs.
It's always great to be like, other places are doing the same thing
Doing
we
this
are.
too.
Like, yes,
Yeah,
it's so nice
we
to
love the
hear.
hashtags.
Love the
Using
idea of
this.
using number lines to build up. Yes. So like it's still
Hmm.
in the LMS. You don't have to go use some fancy new tool. There's workarounds. Support faculty using Perusal in their courses, but yeah, I think Perusal.
Oh,
Okay, I
awesome.
will say Perusal looks scary at first. It does. You look at it, you're like, wow, this is very intense. Where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like step back. It's actually like pretty easy to use, and I think it's
Hmm.
great. Uh,
That's why it can be good to have the syllabus as kind of that starter assignment for students so they get a feel for Perusal and the interface and all that, just to get them kind of started in the course by annotating the
um,
syllabus.
and
What am I for?
Poppy, do you know anything about hypothesis?
Your face was making me scared. I was like, did I freeze?
No, I was thinking about hypothesis. I was like, I swear, like my brain
Mhm.
is,
I have
um,
used Hypothesis before in a course
I
as a
have not.
student,
Mhm.
and it so there's a free feature and there's also a paid version as well. I used the free one, and with that, it had annotations from like past students. So there were like so many annotations because I don't think with the
Mm,
free version you can like start fresh each semester. So it was kind of overwhelming, honestly, because there were thousands
Interesting. You can
of comments on
actually, but
each.
whoever creates the
Okay,
group would need to create a group each time
oh,
so they
for
just
new
didn't.
for
Okay,
new
okay.
groups.
I was like, I've never
So
used it.
it was a lot. Um,
I've heard
but
of
well,
it.
because you can
overall,
annotate websites and things is what I'm
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
thinking. And
Oh, okay.
like people that are using OER like Pressbooks,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
Hmm.
common,
that.
I think, to, if you have a textbook, an open source textbook, then you can require them to annotate on that. But
Yeah.
I like that feedback from the student perspective.
Overall, it was great, like easy to use. There were some times where it was a little clunky with trying to highlight, and it wouldn't work with every document. It was just kind of finicky, and the instructor kind of said, like, "Oh, that's just how Hypothesis is." But maybe if you do have the paid version, it's a little different. But we did a lot of annotating in that course, and overall, it was a fine tool to use.
I think it would be if you're using the free version too. I'm thinking about the grading process, and that might be
Hmm.
a little
We had to
daunting.
copy and paste all of our annotations
Uh,
into a
Oh,
Word
wow.
document. So that's kind of the workaround if you do want to grade it. It's not the prettiest or the best, but that's, I think, one of the best ways to do it is have the students be responsible for submitting
Oh.
it.
Then Lisa
Yeah.
says they just switched from hypothesis to perusal. So there are many tools. I mean, just
There's so
depending
many.
on like Rosalind said, if you want to do annotate a website, hypothesis might be the
Hmm.
best way to do that. Or if
Yeah.
you're annotating a podcast, maybe you want to do perusal. Or it's just a Word
Hmm.
document. Maybe keep it simple.
Yeah.
Um,
Whatever works
as
best
I
for
as I just
course.
said, keep it simple, as on our next slide.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I didn't mean to
Oh,
do
look what
that,
you did
but
there.
it's an accident. So just to wrap up the session, because we're running out of time here. Here's some practical tips for guiding instructors. Sorry. Here's some practical tips for guiding instructors to successfully implement social annotations in their courses. You can feel free to use this. Just simple. We're going to keep it simple tips. Set expectations, clear but simple. In interaction encouraged, replies and engagement. Model the tone. If you want to set that first comment, it really sets the vibe. And participation over polished, grade for showing up, like low stakes.
Mhm.
So students get overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, this is worth half my grade. Like maybe like um just keep it to participation. Like I said, low stakes environment, keep it pressure free, and explain the why. Why are we doing this behind the social annotations? Students love to hear why they're doing
The
something,
why.
and it's not just
Hmm.
for the sake of doing it.
Oh, I thought I had our resources in here. Hmm. Okay.
Oh, it might
Well,
be
I'll
the
make
end.
sure to,
I
yeah,
think it
I
might be
don't.
the end.
Oh,
There
perfect.
it is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. These are some resources that you'll have access to in our PowerPoint. So if you'd like to go through them just whenever you have the time, this is really just a starting point. There are many guides, tutorials, articles, and ideas for implementing social annotation. At the bottom, in the last link, I also included a link to other social annotation tools that are out there as well. So you can kind of go through and see what might work best for the courses that you're helping develop as well. And let's see, I will end here with our QR code. If you want to learn a little bit more about our team and what we do, see some of our work, feel free to scan that. But we thank you guys so much for joining this session today. I hope you got something out of it and it inspired you to implement something in your course or just feel more confident recommending something to an instructor that you're working with.
Fantastic. And as I said in the chat, I love a good chart. So that's always
I
helpful
do too.
to borrow and show. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for such
Yes.
an engaging session. We all enjoyed it. As somebody said in the comments, it was nice to have the affirmation that they are doing the right thing. And sometimes
Yeah,
it's not just new stuff, but it's that sigh of release that we're going out there. We're going to be going
definitely.
into a 10-minute break and then having the final session, a best in track. So I'll see you all at 3:20. Thank you so much. I'm
Great.
stopping the
Thank
Thank
recording
you all
you.
so
now. Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.